What's up, guys? Full Glass Dani here, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the wines from the Rhone Valley. And this is going to be a quick class version, so I'm really just going to be highlighting the things that you need to know, the grapes, the regions that you'll be familiar with, just to get you comfortable with this region in France. Maybe explore a little bit next time you go to the store and you find a wine from this region. It'll get you really excited to try them. So I have to tell you that the Rhone Valley is truly one of my most favorite wine regions in all of the world. Which I know is a big statement for me to say. I like to say this about a lot of wine regions, but truly, the Rhone Valley has a place in my heart. This is actually one of the first wine regions I ever visited as a wine professional because I was so intrigued by everything, and I still just am so in love with them, even today. So excited to share these wines with you. So let's dive in. So when we're learning about the Rhone Valley, here's where it's located. Okay, so it's in the southeastern part of France. And you can see that, so we've got this big chunk of blue right here. That's the heart of the Rhone Valley, but there's also this sliver up here that is also the Rhone. It actually covers a pretty big space as far as a region goes, and those two areas have very different climates. So in general, when we're talking about the Rhone Valley, we're going to split it up between the Northern Rhone and Southern Rhone. I know my face is in the way here, so there we go. So here it is a little bit more blown up. Now you can see just how small the Northern Rhone is compared to the Southern Rhone. But both regions are part of the Rhone Valley because the Rhone River, of course, goes right through them and goes north to south, and it dumps out into the Mediterranean Ocean right here. So again, when we talk about the Rhone Valley, there's usually two separate regions that we're going to be looking at. However, I will tell you that when people are in general talking about the Rhone, a lot of times they might just assume it's the Southern Rhone because it's just so much bigger. We see a lot more wines from there. Just because the Northern Rhone, it's such a tiny production. We don't see as many wines, and they're a little bit more expensive. But that's where my favorite wines come from. This is going to be the Northern Rhone. So let's dive into that one first. So with the Northern Rhone, the grape that you're going to need to know is Syrah. Now, Syrah originally, if we want to get really geeky here, Syrah originally does come from somewhere else. However, when we think about Syrah's hometown, like where Syrah became famous and notable, it was from the Northern Rhone. Now, hopefully you've heard of the Syrah grape before. There's a lot of different expressions of Syrah from around the world. By the way, if you didn't know, Syrah and Shiraz are the exact same grape. Shiraz is just what the Australians call it. But yes, Northern Rhone is where Syrah really just took off and throughout history has been the most famous. So in general, we can expect if we were to open up a bottle of Syrah from the Northern Rhone, is that it would be a full-bodied red wine. They are very big. They're always going to be dry, as in they don't have any residual sugar in them, okay? So even though there might be some fruit flavors in Syrah, right, we might get some nice black fruit is what Syrah tends to be towards. There's never any sweetness in these wines. So just remember there's a difference between sweet and fruity. It's something I always want to make sure people are clear on. The thing I love most about Northern Rhone Syrahs, though, is because they have this funky, traditional, just earthy component to them. Think things like, this is for when you want to get adventurous and want to really discover the heritage of wines. So in particular, our Northern Rhone Syrahs can get this kind of think savory, like bacon fat, charcuterie, which would be like smoked meats kind of note. I know it sounds weird, but it's pretty fantastic. Some people like to use the word smoky to describe them. Honestly, I'm very careful when I describe a wine as smoky, just because a winemaker never wants to think that their wine smells like a campfire. But some people do translate this kind of smoked meat character to a smoky note. What else I really love about Northern Rhone Syrah is this beautiful herbaceousness that they get. So you could get something like spices like black pepper. This olive note is huge in Northern Rhone Syrah. So I'm one of those people that I don't like olives. I don't eat them, but I love an olive note in my Syrah. And even if you're, one of those people that you taste a wine and you're like, I can't taste anything but grapes, right? Northern Rhone Syrahs, you might be able to pick these things up because they are so evident. And then think things like with herbs, it'd be things like fresh lavender or rosemary, things that are just really herbaceous and aromatic. It's a very beautiful note to these wines. Okay, so they're just overall amazing. They are hard to find. They can be very expensive as well too. There are some more other regions that I haven't mentioned here, but our top three ones that I wanted you to just be familiar with is going to be Hermitage. Hands down, probably the most famous. I would say that's the most famous region in the Northern Rhone for Syrah. Then on the outskirts of Hermitage, you have Crozes Hermitage, which is actually something that you can usually find for a much better value. So if you want to check out the wine, like the Northern Rhone wines, definitely look for a bottle of Crozes Hermitage. It's not going to be nearly as expensive as the others. And then the other region that's very famous for Syrah is going to be Côte Rôtie. Now, there is a white grape of the Northern Rhone, and that is going to be Viognier. So hopefully you've heard of Viognier before. This is a grape that actually almost went extinct, and the only reason why it's not extinct anymore is because of a region called Condrieu. And it's really crazy, actually. I have a lot of family in France. I think I've mentioned that to you guys before, but I actually have family that lives just above the town of Condrieu. And when I visited the Rhone Valley last time, I was able to stay with them. And it's funny, they're really not wine people by any means. They just, whatever's on the dinner table is what they're going to enjoy. But they were all about the wines of Condrieu. So very, very proud in that area for this. So anyway, Viognier as a grape, it's a full-bodied white wine. Okay, so if I were to compare this to another grape that you might be familiar with, I would compare it to Chardonnay as far as the weight of the wine. Like it's a full-bodied big wine. However, Viognier is a very aromatic varietal on its own, okay? So it's actually one of the few white grapes out there that is incredibly floral. And then you might be getting some like peach or apricot nectarine, lots of stone fruit, almost getting to like the tropical fruit kind of note. It's this very ripe fruit. Again, this is always going to be a dry wine, but because it's so floral and aromatic and has a lot of fruit in it, a lot of times your brain might confuse you thinking that this is going to be a sweet wine. It's definitely not. So this is another one that's going to be really hard to find, but it's such a treat. And it's really cool to know as somebody that really enjoys wine that this is the hometown of Viognier. If you've ever had Viognier from anywhere else in the world, Condrieu is the town that really has just kept this one going, which is great. It's really awesome. Throughout the ages, they kept it going. Okay, so that's the Northern Rhone. Now, in the Southern Rhone, I want you to remember that this is going to be the land of the blends. So you saw on your map just how much bigger the Southern Rhone is. We're getting further into Southern France. It's a warmer climate here, so grapes are just in general more happy. And they're over the years, basically, they've all had lots of babies. So it's one of those things where there's a lot of grapes being grown in the Southern Rhone. And as a winery, like you might not even really know what's in your backyard kind of thing, because just over the years, they've been having, so many babies because the climate is very ideal for that. In general, though, if you're going to think about like wines of the Southern Rhone, it's going to be based on the Grenache grape, okay, supplemented by Syrah and Mourvedre. So if you've ever heard of a GSM blend, that's exactly what this is. It's a Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre based blend, and these are traditional from the Southern Rhone. Okay, so there are lots and lots and lots of regions in the Southern Rhone, but if I were to highlight 3 of the top ones for you, the most famous, of course, is going to be Châteauneuf-du-Pape. That's the picture that we're actually looking at here. Châteauneuf-du-Pape makes a very concentrated style of GSM blends. They have these soils that you can see in this picture called galets. Those are giant stones, giant like river stones. And just imagine farming that. I feel like that would be really difficult. But those rocks enable the roots of the vines to dig really, really deep for water. So it makes a very concentrated wine, which is really beautiful. Across the river, I believe, is Gigondas. So Gigondas is a town that's also very famous for these GSM blends, usually not as expensive as Châteauneuf-du-Pape, but I will tell you that in the last few years, it's become so famous that the prices have been going up. So if you're looking for more of a value from the Southern Rhone, this is actually the best. One of my favorite areas of France to get value wines is going to be something called Côte de Rhone. And Côte de Rhone, basically, it includes a whole bunch of different villages around the Southern Rhone that, wineries can pull grapes from all over the place and make a blend. And they're meant for the most part, everyday drinking. So you can actually get a great bottle of Côte de Rhone for like 10, 15 bucks. They obviously get more expensive as well, but this is a really great way to dive into the wines of the Rhone Valley without having to spend so much money. Because as I told you guys, the Northern Rhone especially is tough to even find stuff from. So what are we going to expect from these blends based on Grenache, Syrah, and Mourvedre? So in general, Grenache, since it's at the forefront here, Grenache is a more lighter bodied wine. So they're usually going to be blended together with these bigger grapes like Syrah and Mourvedre to create more of a medium to full-bodied red. Now that depends on if you're picking up a bottle of Châteauneuf-du-Pape, it's going to be more full-bodied, whereas if you get a bottle of the Côte de Rhone, it's going to be a little bit more light-bodied because it's meant for everyday consumption, right? Usually we can expect a mix of like a dried red fruit character. So think things like a dried cherry or like a dried dried like cranberry kind of thing. It's almost this like tart dried note, and a nice mix of that black fruit coming from the Syrah and Mourvedre grapes. Now, it's all over the place too. You never know what you're going to get, but if you pick up a bottle of of like Côte de Rhone or something. So you can sometimes get this like beautiful earthy note. And I hate to be like, it tastes like dirt, but it'll have this kind of earthy depth to it. You can also sometimes get more of this like dried earth note. That's why I put hay there, right? So it's like this dried earth character, and then dried herbs as well. You can tell by my theme here is dried because the climate here is so sunny and dry that it actually translates that into the grapes. The grapes are ripening very, a lot, and they're actually taking on this dried fruit character. So again, it depends on what you're paying for the bottle, where it's coming from, all of that, but this is what you can expect in general. So if you had to walk away today with learning anything, it's going to be Syrah and Viognier from the Northern Rhone, and then blends from the Southern Rhone based on Grenache, Syrah, and Mourvedre. That's really all you got to know. I definitely recommend checking out. If you haven't had these wines in the past, look for them the next time you're at a wine shop. Explore, have fun with it. These are really great wines to get into. If you want to keep learning with me, you can go to fullglassevents.com or reach out to me on social media. You can find me at fullglassdani. Thanks for learning, guys, and I will see you in the next video.